yeah, so this is kind of a double, a double condition here. The first one's pretty straightforward. If price is above, basically this would be the recent, the current swing high, then, we want a long signal, or as Steve puts it, a positive signal. So, however, if, price is below the swing high, then we're going to do a check, right? We're going to do a double check here, or a comparison here. So, yeah, so if the current price, if the market is below the swing high, then we're going to compare the current swing high to the previous swing high, right? Now, typically this is not possible. The swing indicator, needs to plot the previous swing high forward in time, right? So, BloodHound, only reads, well, I guess to be more exact, in order for BloodHound to read older values, historical values from an indicator, you need to know exactly how many bars back to look, right? And so, within the indicator, and more specifically with the swing indicator, right, you never know how far back you have to go to get the swing high of the last, right, of the previous swing high. So you never know how many bars back you have to count. So that's always changing. So the only solution to that is you need a custom swing indicator that's going to print, the current swing high, and the last swing high. So, but in this particular case, we have a way to do this because of the type of comparison that we're doing, right? We're not comparing price to the last swing high. We're comparing the current swing high to the last swing high. So that means the comparison is quite a bit different here. So if the last swing high is lower, then we're going to generate a short signal. But if the last swing high is higher, then we're going to generate a positive signal there. So just to kind of give you a heads up of how we're going to do this is we're going to be constantly comparing, the last swing high to the current swing high. And we can store that inside of the toggle node, right? So the toggle node will be tracking if the current swing high is above or below the last swing high. And so that's how we can do this, right? And we can, because this is a binary kind of comparison, then we can store that, that comparison inside of a toggle node, right? So obviously, so if it's lower, then we'll store a short signal in the toggle node. And if the last swing high is higher, then we'll store a long signal in the toggle node, right? So that's why we can do this comparison of the current swing high to the last swing high, because it's a binary kind of decision here, as opposed to trying to compare the current price to the last swing high, which means you need to know how many bars back to get that value of the last swing high there. So with that, let me take some time here and get the swing indicator on the chart. So to get to the swing indicator that comes with BloodHound here, we're going to go into the Shark folder. And there it is right there underneath BloodHound, right? The swing highs and lows. So we'll just add that onto the chart. And I'm just going to use the default values here. Number of swings 4 and swing strength 7. Actually, I think the way this is phrased, probably number of swings should be knocked down to 3. Yeah. All right. So there we have it. So we can see this swing high is referring to that high point, And that high point is referring to that high point. And it's going to be that high point is referring to that swing high, right? So on and so forth. So, yeah, let's see here. Actually, I think I can get this. Yeah, you notice how long of a delay we have from this low point to when the swing low is detected. You know, that is a matter of, well, it's a combination here, but you know, obviously it depends on your swing strength, but also the number of swings can affect that too. And I think if I knock this down to 2, it'll detect things a little quicker. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So that swing low is being detected a little quicker. So the swing highs as well. All right. So there we go. So we got the swing highs and lows on the indicator, on the chart, I mean. And so I think that's all we need. Yeah, that's all we need. So let's get BloodHound open here and go to work. First thing we need to do is put in today's workshop date name. So I can use the change button there. All right, there's today's date. All right, now that we have a file name, we can start working here. So let's switch over to the Logic tab, and we can start working on the Logic board. Let me hit the new button to start a new Logic template here, right? And let's see what to call this. We're figuring out, you know, how to compare the current swing to the last swing. Well, yeah, we'll tackle the first part here, the easy part, which is if price is above the current swing high, then we'll just generate a long output. Right, so that'll be a matter of grabbing a comparison solver. Actually, all of this will be using comparison solvers. All right, let's connect that in. All right, and we'll specifically compare the closing price. Let's see. All right, so input A, that will be the closing price of the bars. So we'll switch the type to price. And there's the closing price is the default selection. So we don't need to change anything there. Now, input B, that will be our swing indicator here. So let's go and select the swing indicator. There we have it. And let's see, I did knock the number of swings down to 2. That's all I adjusted, so we're good there. And next, we need to select, you know, which plot. So this question, you know, is only about the swing high. So the widest top, right? The top is the high, the bottoms would be the low. And so these would be the, you know, the basically the highest highs or the lowest lows. And depending on, you know, depending on your number of swings here, you could also generate, you could generate lower highs or higher lows as well. But we're just interested in the swing high itself, or the highest high. So we're going to select this for long and short, right? A lot of times when we're using the swing indicator, a lot of times you do something like this, right? Long signal for the swing high and a short signal for the swing low. But this time, right, this question focuses purely and only on the swing high. So we're going to select both long and short for the widest top. So, all right, there we go. So pretty straightforward, right? So pretty much every time a swing high forms, then the market's going to be below it. So as soon as a swing high is detected, right, price is going to be below it. And then we have to wait for price to move back higher if it ever does. And let's see here. Yeah, so if the swing highs are stepping lower, then obviously you're going to get a lot of short outputs there. So, yeah. So now what we're interested in is the short outputs, right? These areas here with the short output, right? So if the price is above the swing high, then there's nothing to do, right? That's a pretty straightforward. We just generate a long output. But whenever price is below the swing high, yeah, so this is when we now need to switch over and do this comparison here, right? So let's build the comparison solver for this condition right here, right? So open this back up and let's switch over to the logic board again. And we're going to grab another comparison solver. All right, so what we're doing here, let me open this up a little bit more, is, right, we're going to compare the plot of the swing indicator on the current bar. And so that's what the 0 means. 0 means, the current bar, or the bar that just closed, sorry, to the swing plot 1 bar back. All right, so the 1 would be 1 bar back. 0 would be 0 bars back, so that's the current bar, right? So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to compare, and we want to identify when, right, the swing high changes, right? If the swing high moves up or if it moves down. That's what we want to identify, right? Because that's what this, right, this secondary comparison is doing, right? We're checking to see, did the swing high go lower or did it go higher, right? So that's what we're going to do. And if you look at this, right, obviously when the swing indicator, moves up or down, right, this would be, the current bar. So actually, I should reverse this. So we're taking the current bar and comparing it to 1 bar back. So input A, that's going to be, right, our swing indicator again, and adjust that number of swings to 2, and we're going to select the whitest tops again, and then input B is also going to be the swing indicator. So we're going to select the swing indicator one more time, and remember to keep adjusting the the settings there, the properties. And again, right, we're always focusing on the swing high, for this particular type of question here, right? But this time we're going to use a displacement of 1, right? So displacement 0, is going to be the current bar, and if we use a displacement of 1, right, then that takes the previous bar back and pulls it forward onto the current bar. So that's how we're able to compare the swing high of the current bar to the swing high of 1 bar back by taking that plot that's 1 bar back and displacing it forward, right? That's what NinjaTrader's displacement function does, is it takes, all the data 1 bar back and just pulls it and shifts the indicator forward 1 bar. So there, that's how we can do that. And yeah, so here we can see, well, let me shrink this up a little bit. So whenever the swing high steps higher, right, we get a long output. And if the swing high steps lower, there we go, steps lower, right there, then we get a short output. So, and let's see here. So we actually want, yeah, we actually want this reversed, right? So the way this is phrased is, right, so yeah, if we're looking at, right, the current swing high, yeah, the way this is phrased is if the last one is lower, then we want a short output, right? But we can see that right now it's generating a long output here. So we're going to reverse our outputs. Right, so yeah, we're going to change the default outputs and reverse them like this. There we go. There. So double check this again here, make sure I'm reading it right. Actually, no, I think it was the other way around. Yeah, actually, it is probably referring to the current. Yeah, to the current swing. So, right, so either way you want this, right, all you got to do is reverse the outputs, you know, and that will just reverse this comparison that's being done here, right? So actually, I think it's probably supposed to be the opposite. So let's put this back the way it was, like so. And that actually, to me, kind of makes more sense anyways. So, all right. So yeah, so if the current swing high is higher than the last, then if price is below the swing high, but the swing high made a higher high, basically, that's what this is saying. If a higher high was made, then if price is below, then we'll still get a long output there. I'm wondering if there's a, yeah, I think there might be a simpler way to do this instead of needing a toggle node. So my original thought is to just put this into a toggle node. Like so. So there we go, right? Pretty straightforward. If, yeah, just a little quick disclaimer here. This swing indicator didn't come from us, but every once in a while, I don't know, it has these gaps in it. So there is a bug in the original code, but like I said, this is not our code, and this is a free indicator. So, you know, you just gotta take it as it is with a little grain of salt there. So what I was trying to illustrate here is, yeah, so when the swing highs step down, right, we're gonna get a short output from the toggle node, right? So the toggle node is basically holding on to the last value there, right? So whenever one of these signals goes into the toggle node, right, the toggle node just holds on to it. And so then when the swing high starts stepping up, then, right, that toggle node is going to hold on to a long, and if the swing high step down, right, the toggle node flips to a short output, so on and so forth. So that was my original thought, was using two nodes like that. However, I think there's a way to do this with just one node. So now if you can minimize the number of nodes, then, right, that minimizes the amount of processing your computer has to do here. So I'm just going to test this out first and see if this works. Yeah. There we go. Sorry. I didn't need a threshold solver. What I needed was the swing trend solver there. And let's see here. Oh, I need to do a reload again here. All right. So, yeah, what I wanted to verify here is if one of these trend types will do the same thing as what the toggle node's doing. And I think the quick trend, let's see, is it the quick trend? No, it's not. Yeah. All right. Yeah, unfortunately, the swing trend trend type here, you know, it takes into consideration both the swing lows and the swing highs. So, but this question here focuses purely on the swing high. So, yeah, so unfortunately, none of these trend types here will do the same thing as what we built with the toggle node. So All right, so we'll just have to stick with the original thought here. Okay, so I'm going to go and clean up those nodes that I made here. So I'm not using the indicator threshold. So you always want to go and keep things cleaned up and delete those, right? Because otherwise you're wasting processor time. And we'll delete that one too. Okay. So now, back to our original, right? Our first condition here, right? Which is if price is above the swing high, right? Then do an long output. But if price is now below the swing high, now we have to, decide on what to do here. So that now requires a if-then node. Now, this is probably where things gets a little tricky here with the if-then node. Because the one thing that you have to remember with the if-then node is that the long output has its own internal switch, and so does the short output. Right, two calculations are going on at the same time, because that's the fuzzy logic nature of BloodHound. So there's actually two if-then switches inside this node, right? There's one if-then switch for the long calculation, and then there's a second one for the short calculation, right? So you can't just connect this in like that and expect things to work, right? Things aren't going to work just like that. So So I'm going to do some experimenting here. All right. So far, so good. Right? So whenever price is above the swing high, we're getting a long output here, right? So now we still need to work on, on the logic when price is below the swing high. So what I did to get this to work here is I used a inverter node. I could have used, I could have used a long short modifier as well. But what I used the inverter node to do is to turn off the short output, right? So there is no short output going through the inverter node, right? If we connect this up here, right, all we get are the long outputs now, right? So from our comparison solver, we only get long outputs here. And so with the inverter node, and let me rename this here. So with the inverter node, the short side, I turned that off, right? I disabled that. And then on the long side, right, that is still enabled, but I did turn the inverter off, right? So we don't want any inverting going on here. So I guess I could turn the inverter off on the short side, not that it really matters, right? Yeah, so the inverter, is only allowing the long side to pass through, and it's not inverting either. So the inverting is off there. So, all right. So that gets half the if-then working correctly. Now the other half is getting the else connection to work properly. So let's connect this up and see what happens. Yeah, so we have a short output there that is incorrect. So we need to get rid of that. However, we do need a short output here. So I'm just going to have to start debugging stuff here. All right, so the toggle node, we can see the toggle node does have, I'll stretch this out a little bit. There we go. So the toggle node does have a short output there. All right, it's just not making it through the if then. All right, so let me connect this up again here. Oh, right. Okay. Oh, all right. Yeah, let me try this. So, since basically when our comparison solver, when it gets a long output, the long output is, we want that to control both switches in the if then, right? We want that long output to control the long switch and the short switch. So, all right, let me try this. Let's see here. All right, so from this inverter, we've isolated the long, the long output when price is above the swing high. So now, in order to get this long output to also control the short switch, inside the if then, I will need to run that. Well, actually, let me see if I can do this all in the inverter first. Oh, look at that. All right, cool. Yeah, so I could just do this with the inverter. Okay. Let's get rid of that. Nope. Actually, I'm going to need 2 inverters here. There we go. All right, so our inverter on top, shoot, I just accidentally clicked on the delete button there. Let's get this going again here. There we go. All right, so the inverter on the top, it's taking, our long output here when price is above the swing high, and we're getting both a long and a short output. So that's going to control both switches in the if then, So let's connect that into the if. And this other inverter is still only providing a long output there. All right. So now let me see if that is working. There we go. I think that is working. All right, let's scan through the chart a little bit here. So our swing high dropped lower and price is below it, so we have a short output. Price is now above the swing high, the current one, long output. A new swing high, so now price is below the swing high, but it's a higher swing high than the previous one, and so we still have a long output. And of course, price is now above the swing high, still a long output. A new swing high was made, so we still have a long output even though price is below the swing high. And here we go. So now a lower swing high was made and price is below it, so now we have a short. All right. So there we have it. And let me look back here. There. So lower swing high, lower swing high. So short output until price, right, breaks above the swing high. Yeah. And once again, a lower swing high, short output until price breaks above that swing high. Yeah, there we go. All right. So because, let's kind of summarize this here, right? So because, the swing price being above the swing high is what was, is the controlling factor here, right? So using the inverter here, so using this inverter, I was able to basically take the long output from our comparison solver, right? So there we go. So that long output, let me find a better spot here. Yeah, right. So whenever we get this long output, right, by manipulating the inverter node, I was able to get a long and a short out at the same time. I could have done the same thing with a long-short modifier. So if I took a long-short modifier, I could have set the mode to mirror long, right? Mirror long, and I'd get the same result. So, it doesn't really matter which one you use, right? You get the same result. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, look at this. So that looks like price closed exactly on the swing high and there's no output. So we need to do something like this. There. All right. Yeah, so you got to decide if price equals the swing, does that qualify, right, for price being above the swing or not? Probably not. It just says above, so we'll turn that off. And the short output, we'll say that if price equals the swing high, then we'll let, the prior, then we'll consider if price equals the swing high, we'll consider that as price being below it, right? So below or equal. So, yeah. So if it is below, right, or equal, there. So the short output, I set the A equals B to on. I turn that on for our comparison solver here. Right, there we go. Okay, so we found that little condition there. Yeah, so going back to where we left off here, right? So whenever our comparison solver, right, generates this long output, right, that's what we want here to control the if-then node. And so we had to generate a long and a short going into the if connection, right? So that way, because now this long and short controls both switches in the if-then node, right? It controls the long switch and it controls the short switch. So once we have that figured out, then it's just a matter of getting, the correct outputs into the then or the else connection, right? So the then connection, we set the then connection up, we filtered it, using this inverter, we filtered it so that only long output, right? Only a long output goes into it. And the, right, this toggle node going into the else, right? Well, the else is where we have to make a decision, are we Do we want to see a short output or do we want to see a long output? And so the toggle node has both the long and the short output depending on if swing highs are going higher or if swing highs are going lower. So, all right, so there's a little summary of how this all works.